Politico, once again, spins like a Democrat lying about President Trump. I'm going to read you the article and show you what I mean. I always like getting my articles from Democrats because even though they're terrible and full of lies, at least you know that they're not trying to puff you up and just be on your side like a lot of the right-wing stuff is. I like hearing it from the left, and then I read between the lines at what it really means. So welcome to the Doug In Exile channel. I'm so glad you found us. I hope you'll give us a subscribe. And of course, those who've been here on here for a while know you watch all 4 videos all the way to the end. Leave a comment below and give us a thumbs up. That's how you're kind to your fellow happy patriots. And you guys have been so kind to me this week. So thank you. Let's check in on the Supreme Court. This article has a really cool overview, actually, of all of the different judges' thinking and theories. And so I like that kind of talk. And of course, it's not all lies, even though it's Politico. So, you know, a clue from the Supreme Court on how it will handle Trump. That's the first problem is the Supreme Court is not there to handle the president. That's a misnomer. It's like asking how will the Trump handle the Supreme Court? Really? Is he going to go in and manhandle them? Are they subject to him? No, these are co-equal branches of government. Politico, I'm a barely literate comic book artist, and you should know better. Federal judges throughout the country are losing patience with the administration, and that is also false. Federal judges throughout the country. How about some federal judges? How about Democrat federal judges throughout the country are losing patience with the administration? Will it be an issue for the Supreme Court? If the Supreme Court weighs in and starts jumping ahead of Trump and will not allow him to deport, which he was elected for, they're going to create the crisis between our branches of government. So good luck with that. Step on in there, Justice Roberts. This article is by Ankush Kardori. If you say it 3 times, the furniture will start to float in the room. It is generally a bad idea to get in the government's crosshairs. After all, the Justice Department has powerful tools at its disposal. Among them, the vast machinery of federal law enforcement and the ability to gather information that literally no one else can legally obtain. By the way, their government shouldn't be able to legally attain it either. These are just some of the reasons why the government has a roughly 95% conviction rate in criminal cases. That's hideous. That's actually not a compliment to your government. But the Justice Department's most potent asset is the credibility of its lawyers. Judges and juries alike tend to trust Department of Justice lawyers, that's Pam Bondi's lawyers, out of the gate, even ones they've never met before, by virtue of their positions and their obligation to uphold the Constitution and advance the public interest. Many federal judges were once Justice Department lawyers themselves. All day, every day, in federal courthouses across the country, the Justice Department benefits from a general presumption of good faith when a DOJ lawyer walks into a courtroom because people assume that they are both honest and well-intentioned. And I'll say, unless they're a Democrat, then they're politicized and they should be held with the greatest suspect. You should by default assume that they are not upholding the oath to the Constitution, but they have a hidden agenda to promote the Democrat Party. That's what I've exposed over the last years of covering it. These people are just politics. Now, you may make that accusation against both sides. It might be true about both sides, but it is definitely 100% true about Democrats. And a lot of this article is written from the point of view of Politico just doesn't like it that now Trump's Department of Justice has a turn it back. That's the Democrats' nightmare. Now they're going to go like, oh, we don't respect the Department of Justice anymore. This is Pam Bondi's lawyers. This is Trump's lawyers now running the government with a sworn. What happened to the guys? They're just sworn to uphold the Constitution. They're neutral. All of Trump's appointees are just neutral. Remember? 4 years of your BS, Politico. In the first few months of President Donald Trump's second term, Justice Department lawyers have come under fire from judges across the country, Democrat judges across the country. Here, I'll write this article for you, Politico, because you didn't do your homework. I don't have to even do my homework and I already know. Democrat appointed judges across the country, and some of the most high-profile cases that have emerged since his inauguration. The comments have been usually sharp at times, directly questioning the honesty of the government's lawyers and the accuracy of their factual claims, and taken together, they suggest that the administration's officials are squandering the department's credibility just when they need it the most. This is such a one-sided, slanted lie from Politico. I'm happy I did this article for you guys. Guys, I want you to know, this is how both media lies, Politico lies, which is a complete lying rag. Remember, they're the ones that supported the 51 experts, federal experts that came out and said Hunter Biden's laptop was likely Russian disinformation. Politico sat on that story. They knew the truth. They told the journal, they just basically did not print the journalist's point of view on that subject and ended up going over to the New York Post. So this rag has already been exposed as a Democrat operative. So you can't believe this opinion. This is opinion. It's not fact that officials are, that Trump's squandering the department's credibility. That's their opinion as a Democrat rag. That's for starters. We got to remember that when we use Politico. The accumulating record under Attorney General Pam Bondi and other new political appointees has become impossible to ignore. No, I ignore it just fine, Politico. You guys are just really upset and could pose a real threat to the success of the administration's most aggressive legal forays. The frustration may have even reached the Supreme Court. Again, if Clarence Thomas comes out and goes, I'm flustered with this president, I don't like Pam Bondi. Oh, believe you, 100%. You know, you guys have Kagan, you have Sotomayor, deep hacks, deep political hacks. Ketanji Brown Jackson, deep political hacks. When they say they have if they came out and said, we have a problem with Biden, I'd go, whoa, now I believe you're speaking beyond politics. Not if it's the other side. In mid-April, the Supreme Court issued a remarkable middle-of-the-night rebuke of the Justice Department when the court stepped in to order the government to stop deporting Venezuelan immigrants detained under the purported authority of the Alien Enemies Act. And they asked for a pause, not a stop, just to clarify these people's spin. The order came after lawyers for the detainees said that a second wave were about to be flown out of the country. And they did an emergency meeting, ran it up the top of the flagpole, and the Supreme Court blinked, which I think was a big mistake, shows that they're politicized. Leaning toward the Democrats. Only 2 of the 6 Republican appointees, Justice Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, dissented because they're the only ones that are sober-minded and not just going against Trump for the sake of going against Trump like the other justices. Perhaps not coincidentally, the ruling came after the Supreme Court directed the government in early April to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from El Salvador. Now, facilitate is a squishy word. They could have demanded it. They just said, you have to help. If they choose to deport him, and the head of El Salvador did not choose to deport him. Since then, the Justice Department has argued to the lower courts that the Supreme Court's instruction to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release meant, as well-regarded conservative appellate judge summed up in the government's position, they could do essentially nothing. Do you know why? Why can they not do more than just suggest that Trump facilitate this illegal criminal gang member back from El Salvador? Because our Supreme Court does not have jurisdiction over another country's citizen. This is another country's citizen. No, you can't demand they be deported unless the president of that country for which he's a citizen of demands it. Nearly a month later, Abrego Garcia is still in a Salvadorian prison. Whether the Supreme Court grows more skeptical toward Trump administration's credibility and its border agenda may become clear in the coming weeks. Actually, no, it won't become clear because you're wrong. They're already trying to lean this toward their side. The Trump DOJ's credibility problems first emerge this spring during highly charged litigation across the country, often in cases in which political appointees or newly positioned line attorneys were representing the government for once. They didn't put that in the part for once. That is, Trump's appointments finally got to have a say in the courts, because for the last 4 years, it was Biden appointments. For once, Politico, write it in your article. Come on, you can tell us the truth. It won't hurt. You won't lose your credibility. You'll gain credibility, like me. In March alone, at least 4 different judges laid into Justice Department lawyers. Ooh, 4 judges. I wonder which ones they are. A judge in California, I rest my case, Your Honor, concluded that the administration administration had engaged in a sham strategy to fire probationary federal employees by falsely claiming that the dismissals were the result of poor performance. Quote, I tend to doubt that you're telling the truth, the judge told a Justice Department lawyer defending the government. Remember, these are the same kinds of lawyers that got completely canned by Barack Obama, and no one said anything. When he came in and he fired the Republican lawyers from the previous administration, no one said anything. Trump does it, and he's like, I think you're being unfair. The same day, another judge handling a challenge to the firings in a different court was equally dismissive of the government's purported rationale. On the record, before the court, the judge wrote, this isn't true. Big deal. Later that month, the judge overseeing the challenge to the administration's ban on transgender people in the military concluded that the government's arguments were, quote, littered with animus and pretext, unquote. Quote, you're saying one thing in public, you're saying a different thing in court, unquote, she told government lawyers during the hearing. As my colleagues noted recently, that has been recurring issue for the Trump administration. Okay, this article is just garbage, red hot garbage. You know what I'm going to do just to honor this article? I'm going to skip to the end and give you the end because they always tell you what it's really about at the very end. So let's get to the end here because this is pure BS. Just look at how long it is. Mountains. Guys, you can go to Politico, look up the Supreme Court if you want. I'm just going to read this last page to conclude. If the court sides with Trump administration here, it will effectively give the government permission to end birthright citizenship throughout the rest of the country unless and until the Supreme Court rules that the effort is unconstitutional on the merits. That is a false conclusion. In the meantime, countless children, the children of both undocumented immigrants and temporarily legal immigrants, could be born stateless and deported. You guys see the agenda now? This is just another hack trying to keep illegals from being deported. They want the voters here. They want to undermine Trump. This has nothing to do with the justice system, the Supreme Court. Politico is a hack job. The Justice Department has sought to downplay the fallout from a ruling in their favor, arguing that the results would not be as calamitous as the challengers have claimed. The courts would be well equipped to handle the ensuing litigation without chaos throughout the nation or widespread irreparable harm to the people affected. In the meantime, to accept the Justice Department's claims, however, you have to trust them. The Trump's Justice Department cannot be trusted. Now, I said that about Merrick Garland and his Justice Department and Jack Smith for 4 years. So welcome to your free speech right to say that. I hope your YouTube channel isn't taken away for 4 years like mine was. I doubt it, or at least pretend to trust them despite the steady drumbeat of lower court judges who have effectively described numerous DOJ lawyers as dishonest. Pam Bondi's lawyers are now dishonest. What about Merrick Garland's lawyers? They're unreliable, or both. They're both dishonest and unreliable. Thank you, Politico. No politics here. No, none detected here. In other words, Biden appointee or Obama appointee good, Trump appointee bad. I'll translate for you. We may get our first real sign next week of whether these credibility concerns have reached any of the Supreme Court's Republican appointees who are now entering a period in which they will have to directly and substantially engage with the Trump's administration's unprecedented effort to expand the powers of the presidency, even though we're expanding the power of the judiciary against him by having a judge overturn the president. Politico, you're hacks. You're so bad. You're so funny. And who now hold the fate of much of Trump's second term agenda in their hands, my people? When this comes to if this comes to the Supreme Court, we don't know for sure if they're going to weigh in on it, though I believe they should. If this goes to the Supreme Court, you guys know who's going to cover this. Not covering trivia, guys. Just what you need to know from that third branch of government. We'll cover it. Hope you'll subscribe. Love that you're here. I owe you my best work. I'm Doug in Exile.